sir, you're not about me at all.
Call this council meeting to order. This will be the regular meeting of Eureka Springs City Council. Clerk will establish a quorum, please.
David Mitchell.
Here.
Joyce Eller. Here. Terry McClung.
Here.
Mickey Schneider.
Here.
James DeVito.
Here.
E. Purkeypile.
Here.
We got 6.
Thank you. Everybody, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Brings us up to approval of the agenda. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes, deletions, additions, changes over, movements, all the above?
You, Mickey.
Do what? I'm sorry.
Approval of the agenda.
Okay, is this when we add stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to add 2, move around.
I'd like to add 2 different things. One would be a further discussion of recycling, since we're talking about that tonight anyway, and just we're out in a little recycle truck. This is another step of recycling that Jerry Landrum's going to help explain. I'd like to add that.
To new business, number 4.
Well, it's new business, but in view of having people here, I'd like to move it up to under unfinished. It's only going to take a couple minutes.
Okay. Where do you want to move it up to?
Well, number 1 would be nice.
Before
1
number
or
1?
2, yeah, under unfinished.
Okay. You said you had 2 issues?
Yeah, the second one is, I'm not sure what to call this, but we need a discussion and clarification of business licenses, how, I don't know what to call it. Apparently not everybody knows how to look at a business license and figure out what it covers, so they can't take action in regards to enforcing it. So we need a clarification of how a business license, how you look at it and read it, and a discussion in regards to following those business license rules, laws, whatever they're called, and the steps we can take when those rules are disregarded on purpose.
So add number 4, business license interpretation.
And clarification, yeah. And
Okay,
we also have
clarification,
people here on that. So if that also could be moved up under unfinished. But it'll take a lot longer than the first one I brought up.
Going to need a second on those.
I'll second both of them.
Okay. 1 and 2. Okay. Anybody else?
Where are we putting that?
We've got a first and a motion and a second on both of them to add them before the first unfinished business item. Put them top of the list since there's people here. So that's where they're going. Anybody else? If not, all in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Brings us to approval of the minutes for July the 8th, 2013.
Motion it. Second.
What's it, James?
I moved to approve and he seconded.
Made and seconded. Any changes, deletions, interpretations, any of the above? If not, all in favor of the minutes as they are, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same amount? Okay. Brings us into Commission Committee Authority Reports and Expired Terms. Planning, I think everybody has a letter from Beverly, so she's not here, and I don't think we have anybody else from planning here, do you? Okay. So, we'll accept the letter in her stead, that's fine. That moves us on to CAPC. I don't think we... Terry, you got something from CAPC?
Well, just on CAPC that just publicly thank Bobby Foster for her service on CAPC. She has resigned,
She
so
did
that's
resign,
2
yes.
spots now
Okay.
on CAPC that we need to fill
Okay.
quickly.
All right. Well, you can make that bid to the camera later on and council for comments. All right, that moves us up to Hospital Commission. Do we have anybody from the Hospital Commission? Parks, Bruce is here to make some comments.
Thank you, Mayor.
You bet.
Good evening, Council. I have two items, and I guess we'll call them a FYI or heads up or something that may come to the table in a couple of weeks. One is we have a goose problem on Lake Leatherwood. And we've got a resident population of about 27, and we have closed our swim beach for almost 3 months because of them. And there are several ways to deal with them. It's fairly complicated because you go through the USDA to get to the federal game and fish, or federal fish and wildlife, and you go through the Arkansas game and fish. But to get to the chase, we're going to be required to go through several different steps to try and eliminate the problem. And it'll require an ordinance with a sign that says no feeding. That's absolutely the first thing. It'll require harassment techniques, such as pyrotechnics, special type of guns. It could include having a dog. And from everything I can hear, and the most successful has been Bella Vista, it doesn't work. And what you wind up doing is you wind up, if you do harass them to the point of success, they go somewhere else. For instance, 200 geese left Bella Vista and went to Bentonville, and Bentonville's not very happy about it.
Like vultures?
Yeah, like our vultures going one block.
So what finally winds up is you can get a eliminate permit, and that allows you to trap 20% of the resident population that's there, which in our case would be 5. And that has to be done by a registered person who's registered with the state as having expertise in doing this. And they take them in their cages and they go up to a processing plant in Missouri. So they are processed. What I am going to propose to the Parks Commission, and I think they're going to have to think long and hard on it, is whether we want to come to y'all with a process on-site process, which would mean closing the park for a couple of 3 days and allowing hunters to come in and eliminate the birds. Because no matter which way you go, you wind up coming to elimination, whether it be in Missouri or at Lake Leatherwood. So that's just a heads up. Any questions about that?
Are these
Yes, ma'am.
geese breeding there?
Yes.
Are they breeding there? Is that what you asked?
Like laying eggs, yes. And
Yes.
hatching them.
Yes, they
Yeah,
are.
that was going to be part of my comment. You had 6 of the cutest little babies out there a few weeks ago. Little fuzzy, furry, soft things. They were precious.
Yes,
Now,
they
we
certainly
could
are.
move them, especially the younger ones, and I mean move them like 1,000 miles. Would they still work their way back? I know that's
If
one
they
of
were
those
moved
things.
1,000 miles, I don't think so. But there's special laws involved in, since they're federally protected, there's special laws involved in the actual trapping and handling of them. And honestly, I don't know that detail.
Yeah, because the report was a little confusing. I was thinking if you go far enough, they won't try to come back to where they grew up. But at the same time, dinner sounds good.
But yes, sir.
Bruce, so 20%, that's not a lot.
No.
That's not very many of the geese. And if this is a professional trapper that traps them, or even hunters that go out and hunt them, I mean, they're going to repopulate. So would this be something you do every year?
We don't know. This we pretty much, although it's hard to recognize familiar faces, but it appears that this is a resident population that does not migrate. They stay at Leatherwood all year round. So I don't know the answer to that, but I would suspect it would not be a yearly thing, because I don't think there's necessarily a void that needs to be filled when there's no geese there. But I don't know that for a fact.
So you shoot the ganders?
That part I haven't gotten to, whether we're going to discriminate. It's kind of hard to tell one from another.
So if 27 geese closed the swim area for 3 months, how is 6 less going to keep it open?
That was one of my thoughts.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why my suggestion is that they all need to be eliminated.
That was what I was going to ask, was is there a way to eliminate them completely?
There is. There's a complicated chain, but basically it's the federal Fish and Wildlife allows the Game and Fish to put a season on migratory geese. And it's September, I think there's 2 seasons. One early September, and then there's another one I'm not
It's
sure.
not consistent with the existing goose season.
I don't know if there's actually a season that is prescribed by Game and Fish every year at the same time, because they don't have the
There
power.
is a goose season every year.
There is one, but that's prescribed by the feds. They tell the Game and Fish when they can do it. But generally speaking, yes, there's a standard. It's usually in September.
You also have some domestic stock.
There's
geese
about
out there,
4
too.
or 5, maybe
Yeah.
6
They're
domestics
not
that have been
Canadians.
there for a long, long time. There's no season or any stipulations about them. They could be trapped.
Any further?
Okay, my second item is we have not received physically, but we have received notification that we have been given $81,000 from the Game and Fish to fix Leatherwood Road. That's been pretty much our first step in the whole Lake Leatherwood master plan. We were somewhat surprised that it took as long as it has to start collecting. I thought we would collect in March. It turned out we started collecting in July. We won't see any money till September. There's always a 2-month lag. The total cost of the road, the very first estimate we had, and we hope it'll go down when we put it out to bid, was about $180,000. So that's going to leave us, if that's correct, that's going to leave us with a $100,000 shortfall on being able to build the road. We have about a little over 80,000 in our reserves. So I don't think it would be wise for us to spend every dime out of our reserves. So I suspect that we may have to ask for let's call it a bridge loan. And I've made some numbers up. Excuse me, I didn't make them up. I have filed that show how we could pay that money back in pretty short order by the end of the year. And my ask would be for $50,000. But this is not an agenda item, and I just wanted something for you to mull over. Yes, sir.
What you're thinking, Bruce, is to get the city to pony up 50 and then, or actually going to a lender for it.
Just a loan.
Huh?
Just a loan.
Just a loan from
Yeah.
the bank.
Well,
or-
just a
or
loan
from the
from the
city.
city's reserves.
I see.
And then we would pay it back
Yeah.
by the end of the year. And we would have enough money going on the tax receipts that we had from last year, which are running pretty true to form for this year. We would have enough money accumulated out of that tax to pay, just to turn that 1/8 cent sales tax check over to the city every month once we start collecting it. And by the end of December, we would have that loan paid in full. So it's just a suggestion, just an asking, and I certainly have time to come back to the next meeting talk about it at more at length.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay. Brings us to HDC. I don't think we have a report in cemetery. I don't think we have a report. Brings us to public comments. We'll check and see who has any comments to make. Put on stuff. And we're waiting. Here we go. Yeah, have him come on in. Figured he'd be standing at the door waiting. Come on in, guys. Come on in, Phil. Go ahead and introduce yourself with the camera.
Hi, I'm Phil Jackson, Executive Director of Carroll County Solid Waste Authority.
Go ahead.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity for you to bring our mobile classroom down and for you to look at it. I know you've got some recycling items on your agenda. I think the message that we'd want to do is we'll support, and we're trying to improve recycling. We do it on a daily basis. So anything that you do that will help us, and I know Eureka Springs, Carroll County, we've been a leader and very aggressive in recycling and the solid waste management program. So whatever you do, we'll sure try to support you the best that we can, and I know that we can be successful. And also to invite you to come and talk to us about any issues that you have or suggestions, things that you feel that we would like to be addressing. So thank you again for the opportunity to come down. Come and see us anytime.
Any questions for him before he leaves? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for bringing the trailer, too. First on the list is Mr. Glenn Brown. Oh, is that what that scribble is on there? Okay. All right. You go ahead then. Tom Tharp.
Hey guys, I'm hoping you all got the email that I sent out and you've had time to look at it. We had a rather large issue this weekend downtown with Ray Dotson's crew and his carriage franchise operating illegally. And, apparently the police department couldn't do anything about it, so I'm hoping that you guys can. He used a motorized carriage, which is strictly prohibited by the franchise. It says it's an animal-drawn vehicle franchise. It's not a motorized vehicle franchise. He was using the carriage that was obviously not previously approved by the City Council. When you apply for an animal-drawn franchise, you submit pictures and photos of the carriages that you're going to be using. The horses that you're going to be using are listed. That parade float was not listed in his franchise application, and I don't think any of y'all approved it. He was operating on my franchise routes all night Friday. Mr. DeVito saw him personally going up Spring Street. He came down Center Street. He's been on Armstrong Street with that thing. All of those streets are streets that are on my franchise. The only ones he was allowed to operate on was Highway 23 and Highway 62, and that's it. But he went everywhere else, just because it's a motorized vehicle. I'll let the ambulance get by. I also personally observed him operating as a taxi cab, stealing fares from Abundant Taxi down here at Pied Piper and dropping them off up at Chasers. On top of that, he was parking downtown in the loading zones, parking spaces and what have you, and soliciting for customers, which is covered under a whole other city ordinance. Strictly no soliciting is allowed in town unless you get a peddler's license, and I don't think he got that either. We have a set of rules for this business. It's laid out very simply, and he refuses to follow those rules simply because the business license says carriage services. He thinks that applies to anything that remotely looks like a carriage. He got that thing approved through the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, license plate and all. It's a motor vehicle. It's not a carriage. Once you put a motor in it, it's no longer a carriage. The DMV is called the DMV, not the Department of Carriage Vehicles. So, if you guys can figure out how to make this stop, it would be greatly appreciated by a lot of the downtown business owners, because if he's not going to follow the rules, why should anybody else? Thank you.
Mr. Glenn Brown. Glenn,
How are y'all guys?
introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with what Tom said.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Glenn Brown. I am the division manager of Eureka Springs Abundant Taxi. Again, Friday and Saturday night, we had a parade float with a license plate on the back of it, driving through town. The windshield stopped about right here on the float. The drivers are sitting up here. There's no protective eyewear being worn. And if you look at Arkansas law, if you ride a motorcycle without a helmet, you have to have eyewear on. They had no eyewear on. People were hanging in and out of the thing, yelling, screaming, hands out, legs out. They had a sign on the back of it that said Eureka Tours. But when they were coming down the road, it was so loud with the music blaring that even if they were giving a tour, they couldn't have been hearing what was being said. It's been rigged with 8 to 12 speakers sitting inside the thing all the way around. It came down the hill with up to 8 people in it. Saturday night, arms out, radio blaring, yelling, screaming, hooping, hollering. Now I'm sure that if I came down the hill with one of my limousines with people out the sunroof, out the door windows, radio blaring, there would be some sort of ordinance or law that I was breaking. It's a vehicle, and I just see safety hazard written all over it. It's open air. It's a cage sitting on a truck frame. It's registered as a 1929 Vesta. Visa B, but it's an automobile. It's not a carriage. You go to Central Park, you go anywhere in Chicago, anywhere that offers carriage rides. They are all drawn by horse or mule. There's no motors, there's no keys, there's no transmission, there's no wheels. And for him to come in and start acting as a taxi after the battle that we just went through is just above and beyond me. And that's pretty much all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're going to have to get that fixed out.
Buffer on it.
Next up is Faith Shaw, and I hope I said the last name,
We're
S-H-A-H.
going to discuss this during what you put on the agenda.
Hi. Come on in.
Okay. I don't know why I wasn't arrested.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm your newest Carroll County resident. We're registered to vote and got our driver's licenses here. I'm here to address the clarity of the City Council in opposing SWEPCO. I have been contacted by several friends in Fayetteville who have said, oh, I see the City Council is endorsing 108. I know you didn't say that, but that is what is being interpreted in the press. Because you have opposed 5 of the 6 routes, and Bill Bowden said the route that runs 2 miles south of Eureka, I'm sorry, I was so upset I forgot the paper. It is misleading, and I've had 2 friends call and say, oh my God, that's your route. What are you going to do? And so I really need Eureka City Council to step up and say something to the Gazette and to the lovely county citizen, because it was also unclear after the meeting that you all had that was well attended and many people were here, but it was still 5 of the 6 routes. I moved here, I quit my job in D.C. to come and fight this entire thing, and if we're thrown under the bus, my entire retirement savings are in my place that I found right off the Kings River. I moved here. My husband and I have spent a small fortune in town, hiring people, getting this place ready. We are really good people. You want us to live here, and if that 108 goes through, I have to move. And so I spend 10 to 12 hours a day fighting this proposal, and all I want is for someone to say in clear writing in both of the papers, as many as you can, that you are not endorsing 108. And that's what I have to say about it. And I love Eureka, and I love living here. I didn't intend to move now, but I did quit my job, and now I'm not going back. So that's what I have to say about it.
All right, you can tell Mike to come in next. How you doing, sir? Please introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Shaw, and I was here in the 70s and improved a piece of property and went broke, went back to D.C. and made enough money to come back here 8 years ago to plant 2,000 trees, improve a piece of property, and make this a place where I could bring my grandchildren and teach them about the value of the environment that we are so blessed to have here. The Kings River has gotten a little bit brownish and a little bit greenish in the 8 years since I've been here. The Chesapeake Bay did that when I was there, and everybody had to work to alleviate the conditions of lawn fertilizers, chicken farms and hog farms, and move them all back. 5 years after they did that, the bay is starting to welcome back the crabs and the oysters. You may know from your travels to the east that the ocean south of New York City, extended all the way to southern Maryland, is not the cleanest place to swim in. This is an opportunity for us as custodians of this beautiful place for our grandchildren to help other people understand that this is unique and it is not to be duplicated anywhere else. And if you take out the swath of trees that they are proposing anywhere, and they make this place look like the Shipes Road place that we visited on Wednesday when we went to the Rogers hearing, you will be so ashamed at the way that you have to explain it to other people that you let this go through. If you go look at the Flint Creek power plant, as we did on Wednesday when we went to the Rogers hearing, it is a half a mile upwind from a huge middle school and a large high school. It is upstream from everybody's favorite swimming place. It's where everybody goes to play with their kids. These have been allowed by the government agencies to continue. This is not business as usual. You must get involved and take a strong stand because this place is unique, and it's unique because of the kindness and the thoughtfulness of the people. That's why I came here. It is also unique in that, although everyone here doesn't have an advanced degree, everyone here is crackerjack smart with common sense. And there is nothing that satisfies common sense by any measure of thought regarding this project. I'm the guy who spent all the time on the Census Bureau reports with population data, density per square mile, capacity of electricity versus half of what we use. Anybody with a computer can find the same information I did. They can get on there and they can check out SWEPCO's record with their environment. They can check their financials. It's all there. So I spent my day-to-day sending letters to the commissioners express mail with pictures of where they're going to come through, with the latest issue of the Independent, which has pictures of all of these people who spent 2 days testifying, and a plea that they forget about the fact that they're indebted to the power companies for the funds which sustain them in their office, and think about their grandchildren.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for listening.
Next up is Mr. Jerry Landrum.
And I'm doing solar with you.
Oh, okay, good.
Almost finished. Jerry's
Good deal.
solar installation.
He's a man to work with. Come on in, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. First off, I wanted to really thank y'all for approving Resolution 620 back on the 29th of May of this year. After y'all approved that, President Obama has rolled out his National Climate Action Plan, and I think that's a step forward. And just a few days ago, I was notified that the World Bank is no longer funding coal-fired power plants in the third world. So that's a big step forward. And yeah, we're a small little town, but as we run into our resource limitations, we're realizing that maybe it's a small world. So every little bit we do, I think, really helps. Had an opportunity to tour the recycle van and watch their video. I think that's great work that Phil, Gary, Brian, and George are doing. One of our projects in our climate action plan is composting and food scraps, and I sort of undertook a little bit of a pilot study on that myself, and a little handout on that. I understand that Public Works has tried this before, and they ran into lots of problems with raccoons and possums and flies and big stinky mess. And when I first tried it with open composting, I ran into the same sort of problems. And so I've gone over to this using a tote tank, which are available rather cheaply. On the back side of that handout is our project out of our climate action plan. And then on the front side is a picture of my composting bin there. And I think this is something that can be scaled up, possibly to fold in with your ongoing composting with the yard scraps and the...
That's what we're going to talk about in a minute. Yeah.
Pardon?
That's what we're going to talk about in a minute.
Okay. Okay, well, I will just stay around and do what you
Okay,
want.
thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Like you might as well hang around because it's
Yeah.
first up.
Okay.
Didn't want you to go too far into it.
Okay, that'll do it for public comment. Moves us into unfinished business. Number one on the list is Mr. Snyder's addition of recycling on the first unfinished business. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Floor is open.
Jerry, would you go back to the mic, please? You're going to get carried away there. Jerry and I have been meeting about various ways of recycling since we're talking about it here at the table. And it absolutely cracked me up when he was telling me how Public Works had tried this composting and ended up with all the wild critters. And what he was telling me, what he has tried, I wanted him to be able to go into detail about what you did, what your suggestions are, and your reaction after talking to, what's his face at Public Works. Who was it you talked to?
I spoke with Chris.
Chris.
Dwayne wasn't there that day.
But just kind of fill everybody in on how this keeps 5 million raccoons and possums away.
Well, the stinky stuff is inside the closed container, and that pretty well covers it. Right now I have a large body of creepy crawly critters in there that are actually black soldier flies, and their larvae makes great chicken food and great fish food. And so I fed my chickens and my 100 bluegill on black soldier fly larvae today. And this is not a simple thing. It's not a little thing to ask the city to try again something that they got into problems before. But our composting project, was looking at a $300,000 sealed drum to do it in. And that's great, but I hadn't been able to find anybody that's ready to throw $300,000 into a project such as this. And these tote tanks are available around, for $50 to $100, and they're 275 gallons before you cut the bottom out. And so I think it could work out in your composting facility there to have a row of these tanks, that are gradually filled. And as you go through this first stage of the anaerobic decomposition, which is kind of the stinky stage, you begin to rock it and lift it and mix it with the other composting going on there. So I think you can fold these food scraps in without any problems. But I think I guess I'm asking Public Works to work with me and see if it makes any sense to give it a try. As for how to pick it up, I've been picking it up from 2 restaurants, and I get a bucket of food scraps from each restaurant about 3 times a week or so. So the 5-gallon buckets is probably a good way to do it for small places, but I don't know who would pick it up. Would it be Public Works or the recycling place? I don't know, but...
Question?
Have you had a chance to talk with Dwayne at all, other than that one day when you talked with Chris?
No, I hadn't talked with Dwayne yet, no.
Dwayne wouldn't be doing it. It'd be solid waste picking it up.
Well, Dwayne was the one who had already tried it out at, right? Yeah, that's why he was talking with them, putting it out there where people could either bring scraps, their food scraps, or we could collect from the restaurants. The restaurants could drop it off. However we could manage to work it out, but this would be recycling not only into good compost that the community could use, but that too would also cut back on their garbage or trash prices and amounts, like we're talking about recycling the glass and stuff. Well, this just kind of fits right along with it.
I think Phil would be the one to talk about that, because they'd have to be on the recycling property.
I don't know. That's why I had him come forward and speak with everybody.
Yeah, it seems like something that would just fit right in with their purpose of being out there.
So
if you can get them
what
to
you're
do
saying
it.
is rather than start with Public Works, let's start with the recycle
Public Works
center?
doesn't have any way to do it.
Well, but they did it before. That's why
That's when they quit, probably.
Critters made them quit.
And
Anyway, would
personnel
you
and
mind, Jerry,
equipment.
talking with the recycling people? And maybe they could confer with Dwayne on what he had done before and why that didn't work?
Be delighted to. I gave Phil a copy of this little page here and ran it by him here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Has anybody done any kind of a survey to find out how many households in Eureka Springs are equipped with garbage disposals?
Not to my knowledge.
Because that would take care of all the food scraps and everything. I can understand if you're in a septic system, you would be interested in this, but if you have a garbage disposal, you wouldn't be, because, frankly, of the fly problem. I mean, you have any kind of garbage out, and it's going to be covered with maggots in a half an hour. And it's a mess. Not too many people compost because of the mess it makes. I mean, you have to be pretty determined to do that in the first place. Because I've done composting in other places that I've lived, and yeah, it takes work on the part of the composter before it gets picked up. You know what I mean?
Good term, composter. Mr. DeVito.
I think we're talking about commercial food waste, because the logistics of trying to do a domestic food waste collection would just be
Well, I got
out of
from him
scale.
that he was thinking about the whole town involved.
Well, and I
in it.
was thinking if people wanted to take theirs out there, I wouldn't expect them to get theirs collected. But if we have one going commercially, anybody who wanted to could go out and take their food scraps. Like I said, they have to be worked out, but I wanted to know if we as the council and the city are even interested in this extra step of recycling, of looking into it. And I'm looking at these men over here
Excuse me?
who apparently don't cook. I don't know.
Oh,
Can we ask?
I never cook myself.
I said those two. Can we ask Jerry to at least look into it for us?
Yeah, I think.
Good Lord.
But you said you've already talked to Phil? You have
Briefly.
approached Phil with this? Okay.
He gave him some of the
Definite
paperwork.
lack of enthusiasm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
That
also
was
see
your
these tow tanks working for one individual restaurant that had space behind it. They might choose to do it this way. So that would be something that the city could encourage or help them with. And it could be neighborhood scale as well with the neighbors.
Mr. Purkeypile.
It's not that I don't have any interest in it. I actually studied this in the 70s as alternative energy with methane generation using animal waste and waste from, foods also. And there are ways to do that. It's just, is it cost effective? I mean, can you continue to generate or keep this thing going? Well, I mean, that's something that, as Jerry's saying, this is kind of in its nascent cradle right now for him to see if you can do it with these smaller containers. Or otherwise, you might consider, because you are generating methane gas, you could consider using that as an energy source.
Yes, sir.
You also got to look at, as the recycling boys just said, that they have to have a place to go with that end product and a use for it. And so, in something like that, you've got to look at volume. So,
There's lots of growers.
it doesn't seem to me at this point to be very practical without some kind of.
Well, that's what I'd like to know. And Jerry has a real good background on this. That's why I thought he'd be good to go around asking the questions and talking the talk.
I think if Jerry wants to do that, that's great.
Jerry, would you like to look into this for us for now?
Oh, sure. And if it's okay with everybody, I'll try to talk with Dwayne and Phil and them and see if they see it making sense there. Otherwise, the agricultural diversion, which is what I'm doing on my own now, is a pretty good fallback. So I can try to enlist some other people that want to do aquaculture and such to do it that way. But with the existing recycling program, the existing composting program, they seem like great things to just sort of work with and add to. But thank you very much for everything. And by the way, the city of Fayetteville also passed a resolution similar to ours calling for that national permit tax. So,
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up on the agenda will be Ms. Schneider's number 2 item of business license interpretation clarification. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Floor is open.
I don't know if any of them are outside. Can anybody look and see if they're outside?
Who's it?
Either Ray Dotson or his 2 drivers. At least somebody of that group of 3 is supposed to be here. They said they would be here.
Got to do both of them at once, Diane. There you go.
Hands.
There we go. Okay, no Ray Dotson, no 2 drivers? After they swore up and down they'd be here. Okay. Okay, let me give you a general update, hopefully in a nutshell, of what happened this weekend. I work Fridays and Saturdays at my shop right downtown, and apparently after 5 o'clock, I'm considered the only city personnel here. We're not talking the police or anything. We're talking city personnel. So I got over $20 worth of texts and calls and everything on my stupid cell phone because of this guy in his little Cinderella carriage. Ugh. Now, I talked with his 2 drivers Friday, and Ray had purposely had them wait until after 5 because everything is then closed down. So nothing could be checked, except I know how to read these business licenses. So I let the guys know. I asked to see their license or permit, whatever, and they handed me one, and I just have somebody else's sample one here. And I looked at it and I said, well, okay, this is an animal drawn carriage license. That's what you can drive downtown. You can't drive this motorized thing around. You've got a tour guide sign on the back end. You don't have a permit to be a tour guide. You don't have the right to be a tour. You can't solicit downtown. You've got to have a stop and start destination as an animal drawn carriage you're really going to have to get the sign off for starters and pack it up because you can't do this. This is not what the permit is for. And they were, okay, sorry, we didn't know that, yada, yada. They came up the street to presumably pull over to pull the sign off. In the meantime, they called Mr. Dotson. He said, I don't care. Run it anyway. And that's a quote from them, quoting him. Now, I don't know. I'm thoroughly confused because I did talk to the police chief Friday night late. I mean, this went on for 4.5 hours before I called him. And I'm very confused on what was happening because they were going to stop him. They were going to pull him over. We all knew that they were going to be coming in. We thought it was going to be the weekend before. When you look at a business license that someone has, the 102 next to carriage services denotes animal-drawn carriage. I know how to read them, so I knew that's what it was. This was not an animal-drawn carriage that was going around. It had, the vehicle had a motor, and it had a license plate and all this other stuff, and I don't know how it ever got past safety inspection or anything else because it didn't have a car-type situation. Needless to say, after all of Friday night from 5 o'clock until I finally got out and closed up at 10:30, all day Saturday, not Saturday night, all Saturday and Saturday night until 10:45 at night. And I was there both those times that whole time. That thing was going back and forth. I had talked to them 3 times Friday night. Kept telling them, you've got to quit. Take the sign off. You've got to quit. So they ignored me. They apparently ignored the police also, who stopped several times and asked them to please put the vehicle away, park it, whatever. Wait until they could talk with the city clerk on Monday or come to the council meeting, which they ignored all of them also. Nobody was real sure what to do because it was 2 drivers, not Mr. Dotson, who holds the permit, and it got real ugly. Stealing rides from the taxi people, causing problems with the carriage people. These are all people who have jumped through hoops to get the right to serve people in their taxis or their carriages. They have routes, they have guidelines, they have rules, they have safety issues. This guy has squat and totally interfered with the businesses of all these people that are doing it by the book. I have a problem with that, and we need to deal now.
Mr. DeVito, thank you very much.
First of all, we're assuming that they're functioning under Mr. Dotson's horse-drawn carriage franchise. That's not necessarily so.
Yes, it is. That's the permit.
Excuse me.
Well, excuse me. I read the permit.
But he's talking, Mickey, so don't interrupt him.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We have a van tour in this town. And to my knowledge, we have no regulations regarding the van tour and how they conduct their business. So, as far as I know, they could go to the city clerk and get the same type of license that the EUREKA van tour operates under. And to my knowledge, we have no regulations regarding that. So to assume that they're operating under the horse-drawn carriage franchise is only that. It's an assumption. It could be operating under the same business category that the EUREKA van tours operate under. And if we have regulations regarding that, then we need to find out what those are. I don't think there are any regulations.
I was called and asked if he had a license, and I said the only license he has is for animal-drawn franchise.
If that's the only license that he has, then he's in violation.
Ms. Elmer?
Well, why wasn't this man arrested? Why weren't these people taken into custody? And what is the fine for operating without a license?
I haven't talked to Chief Hyatt yet about it.
Well, I mean, do we have answers to these questions?
I don't know why.
I mean, clearly they were in violation. So why weren't they arrested? I mean,
mostly
you
been
know,
a citation.
is this becoming a wide open town that it doesn't really, that none of our laws matter? You just come here and you do whatever you feel like doing because nobody ever gets arrested anyhow. I mean,
I'm sorry? Nobody what?
Nobody ever gets arrested anyhow. That's what I'm beginning to get the feeling in this council, because now we have talked about, we have several different things now of people doing things that are clearly against regulations, but nothing ever happens to them. So now we have this man who apparently really doesn't care what the law is, coming in here doing his own thing, and we don't do anything about it.
I think until it's clearly defined, I mean, what he did do and what license he did use and what the purposes were. And like I said, I haven't talked to Chief Hyatt yet about it, because it's the first I've heard about it since we got here.
You didn't know
Today.
about this? I mean, geez.
Today I knew about it.
Well, I would really like some answers about
We'll
how
see if we
this
can
could
find
go
it for you.
on for 2 days without anybody bothering to look up and see whether it's legal or not.
Mr. Mitchell.
I agree with Zeller. I think we ought to allow the police chief to look into the situation and consult with our city attorney. And I don't think there's probably anything we can do retrospectively now. Maybe some kind of letter could be sent through the attorney to this person to cease and desist and don't show back up. But at the same time, I think we should allow the police chief to investigate and get back with us, because obviously we can sit here and talk about this forever, but we don't have all the information. So I really would like to allow the police chief his opportunity.
I'll take that opportunity. Ms. Snyder.
I think the biggest problem on the police side was that they were not positive that it was strictly an animal-drawn carriage, and that's what I'm saying. We need clarification. I think with this new computer system going in, Bobby Ray was talking about it at the last meeting, everybody will be able to look up and see what licenses have been applied, which ones pertain, so on and so forth. I think that'll help. But what would help the most would be on this license 102 where it says carriage services. If we merely added animal-drawn carriage services, then everybody would know, and that wouldn't be a problem. But in the meantime, my problem, aside from this fiasco all weekend, is the fact when you apply for a business license and you're getting something as specific as an animal carriage thing, which has 5 billion laws and guidelines, you know what's in there. You'd better, by golly, know what's in there, because you have to meet all of these requirements. So 4.28.10, review of permit, states, at any time the requirements of 4.28 are not complied with, the franchise is subject to suspension or revocation. The City Council may at any time on its own initiative or upon the petition of any resident or property owner of the city review any franchise at any regular or special meeting of the Council upon at least 72 hours prior notice to the franchisee of the time and place that the permit will be reviewed and the reasons for such review. I gave them the reasons and the time Friday evening. That's 72 hours. If a majority of the members find that I'm losing my line here. If a majority of the members elected to the City Council finds after the franchisee has been granted an opportunity to be heard and he didn't bother to show that the permit should be suspended or revoked as the case may be, such suspension or revocation shall not occur unless the majority of the council find that the franchisee is not in compliance. Okay, with the provisions of this article, and it's necessary in order to preserve the public health, safety, peace, and/or welfare. You have to know this when you sign up for this. He's been yelling and screaming and hollering at us for how many years now, after I informed the guys politely and decently 3 times Friday night. Still nothing, nor has he bothered to show, nor have they, and they all swore that they would. I'd like to see a revocation of this license. He obviously is a hazard. This thing is just horrendous. No safety, no nothing.
Mr. Weaver.
First of all, Councilman, you can't give the notice in and of yourself. The council would have to do it in an official manner, so you're not in proper order at this time to revoke anything
One council
unless you
member.
would like to get sued and lose.
Okay, so we as a council would have
The
to.
council would
accept
have to do it in a more orderly manner. Second of all, you need to make sure that that portion of that ordinance is not passed after his franchise was granted.
He just renewed it a couple weeks ago. What do you mean?
Well, you got to make sure that it was,
That what was?
that he renewed it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember him coming to this council and getting it renewed.
I don't think you come before council to renew a business license.
It's not a business license, guys. It's a franchise. You don't know that he's operating under his franchise, as Alderman DeVito said. He may be simply operating a business that's totally without a license.
When it says 102 carriage services, that's animal drawn.
He's had an animal drawn carriage license franchise now for quite some time that he's not operated. He's not had his animals out here. He's not had his carriages out here. You're getting ahead of yourself to decide that that's what he's operating under without hearing it directly from him. What his employee may have told you on the street is not an investigation.
What about what
It's
the
not a
city
proper
clerk
place to
says?
find that out.
What about what the city clerk says? Since she's the one who renewed it and wrote it, or, you know.
That doesn't mean that they're not simply operating outside the law without a license at all.
No, what he was doing was outside the law, definitely.
But what you're doing is you're getting ahead of yourself.
Okay, so would you
Slow down.
would you
Is the caution.
give the list 1, 2, 3, 4, what order that we need to do what?
First of all, I really think the alderman at the end of the table had the right idea. Give the police chief a little time to look into this. And technically, you can issue citations for acts that have happened going back 1 year. So if he looks into it, there is the potential that some act that they took over this last weekend maybe have a citation issued even at this point. Can't arrest them. You can issue a citation or a summons or an information charging them if they are in violation of a law. But the first thing you've got to do is have an investigation and make sure which law or laws, maybe several different laws, have been violated over this weekend. But you've got to have someone investigate that, and that's your police chief.
Okay.
Mr. DeVito.
As the attorney said, he could simply be operating without a license. Now, what's going to keep him from coming down to City Hall tomorrow and getting the same type of license that EUREKA Van Tours operates under? As far as I know, he's going to be well within his right to get that type of a license. Now, yes, and I don't know because I don't have the code book in front of me, does that require operation from a fixed termini? I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't think there's any regulation at all on EUREKA Van Tours. So, as the attorney stated, he could simply be operating without a license, and he could probably come down here tomorrow and get a license and operate that thing on our streets.
And can't we say no?
Mr. Purkeypile.
Well, I mean, we have Chapter 4.2, Group Tour Franchise. Is that the same thing?
Yes.
I mean, that's
It's not the same thing.
no, as a tour,
No.
No.
it's different.
It's a franchise.
So we have no
There's
means
only
of
two. There's only two group tour franchises, and that's Gunnels and the other guy.
Joe Gunnels.
We have step-on and regular.
Yeah, the other guy, and I can't. Jerry
Okay.
is something.
So
I
how
think
does
it's the only two.
EUREKA Van Tours operate? What sort of business license is that?
There are a couple of categories in there. In the business license section, we do use one for the franchise folks, and we use the other one for, I can't remember the name of Michelle McDonald's.
Yeah.
That's the one you're talking about.
EUREKA Tours.
Okay, that's the one we use for hers, and there are very few regulations.